They came back, and your heart just did that thing again, that flutter, that pull, that tiny voice whispering, maybe this time is different. But here is what nobody tells you about that moment. That moment right there is the most dangerous one of your entire healing journey. Not the breakup, not the silence, not the 3 a.m. crying. This moment, right now. When they are standing at your door again, literally or figuratively, and you are deciding what to do next. So before you text back, before you open that door, before you let yourself believe the story they are about to tell you, you need to hear this. Drop a single word in the comments right now. Just one word. The word done. If you are done being the person who always waits, always forgives, always goes back, drop it. Let that word sit there. Because by the end of this, you are going to understand exactly what it means to finally mean it. Now let us talk about what is actually happening when an avoidant comes back. Because it is not what you think. And once you see it clearly, once you really see it, you will never unsee it. And that is the gift I am giving you today. Let us start from the very beginning. You were in a relationship, or something that felt like one. There were moments of real connection, real warmth, real intimacy. And then, without full warning, without a real conversation, without closure, they pulled away, they shut down, they disappeared, emotionally, physically, or both. And you were left standing there wondering what you did wrong, wondering if you pushed too hard or not hard enough, wondering if you were too much or somehow not enough, and then the silence, days, weeks, maybe months, maybe longer. You did the work, or you tried to. You cried, you journaled. You talked to your friends until they gently started changing the subject. You downloaded the apps, you deleted the apps, you started therapy, you read the books, you watched the videos. You told yourself you were healing, and some days you even believed it. And then your phone buzzes, or you run into them somewhere. Or a mutual friend mentions their name. Or they just show up. And everything you built, every wall, every boundary, every affirmation you said in the mirror, it all wobbles. And that terrifying question surfaces again. Should I give this another chance? Here is the truth. And I want you to really sit with this truth before we go any further. An avoidant person does not come back because they have changed. They come back because the distance became uncomfortable for them. There is a massive difference between those two things. A massive, life-altering difference. And most people in your position never fully grasp that distinction, which is exactly why they end up in the same cycle over and over again. An avoidant attachment style is not a mood. It is not a phase. It is not something that fixes itself with enough time apart or enough longing. It is a deeply ingrained way of relating to other people that developed long before you came into the picture. It developed in childhood. It developed in response to caregivers who were either emotionally unavailable, dismissive, or inconsistent. And without deep, sustained, intentional work, which most avoidants are not doing during the time they are away from you, that pattern does not change. So what happens during the time they are gone? They feel relief initially. The pressure of intimacy lifts. The discomfort of being close to someone, of being seen, of being needed, it all fades, and they breathe. For a while, they feel okay, maybe even good. They reconnect with their sense of self, that carefully constructed self that does not need anyone, that is fine on its own, that is better alone. But then something else happens. Human beings are wired for connection. Even the most avoidant person has a nervous system that was built for relationship. And so the loneliness creeps in, not immediately. But it does come. And when it comes, they think about you. They remember the good parts. The parts where it felt easy, where you made them feel safe, where they could take and take without you asking too much in return. And they start to miss that. Note something crucial here. They are not missing you, the full person, the person with needs and feelings and things you require from a relationship. They are missing the comfort. They are missing the warmth without the vulnerability. They are missing what you gave them without fully remembering what it cost you. And so they reach out. Now let us talk about what that reach looks like, because it almost never looks like what you deserve. It almost never sounds like, I have been doing serious work on myself. I understand how I hurt you. I have specific things I am working on. I want to make amends. I want to show you, not just tell you, that I have changed. No. Instead, it sounds like, I have been thinking about you, or I miss you, or I saw something that reminded me of you. Or maybe a simple hey. Sometimes just an emoji. Sometimes a like on a photo you posted 3 weeks ago. Sometimes it is more dramatic. An emotional declaration. Tears. Promises. Grand gestures, but here is what you need to understand about all of those versions. Every single one of them is designed, not consciously, not maliciously, but designed nonetheless to get a response from you without them having to be fully accountable. It is a toe in the water. It is them checking whether you are still available, whether you are still warm, whether the door is still open. And your response in that moment determines everything about what happens next. So how do you respond? Let us get into this. Because I want to give you something real here. Not just value yourself or know your worth. Real, specific, grounded guidance on how to actually navigate this moment without falling back into the pattern and without being cruel either. Because rejecting someone the right way is not about punishment. It is not about revenge. It is not about making them hurt the way they made you hurt. It is about being honest. With them, and more importantly, with yourself, the first thing you need to do is nothing. Before you respond, before you type a single word, before you make any move at all, you wait. Not to play games, not to seem hard to get, but because your nervous system is currently flooded. When you see that message, your body goes into a stress response. Cortisol spikes. Old neural pathways light up, the ones that were carved deep during the relationship. And in that activated state, you cannot make a clear decision. You will make a fear-based decision or a longing-based decision. Neither of those is what you need right now. So you wait. You give yourself at least 24 hours. You breathe. You call a friend who knows the full story, not the edited version, the real story. You sit with the feeling that came up. You let it move through you. And you ask yourself one very specific question, not do I still love them? Because the answer to that is probably yes, and it does not matter as much as you think right now. The question is this: has anything actually changed? Not do I want things to have changed? Not is it possible that things have changed? But based on evidence, based on behavior, based on what I know about this person and the work that would have been required, has anything actually changed? In most cases, when you ask that question honestly, the answer is no. And that answer tells you what to do. But let us say you decide to engage. Because maybe you need closure. Maybe you want to have the conversation. Maybe part of you genuinely needs to hear what they have to say before you can fully close the door. That is okay. That is human. But if you are going to engage, you do it on your terms. You do it from a grounded place. And you do it with full awareness of the patterns you are walking back into. So here is how that conversation can go. You do not match their energy. If they come in soft and nostalgic and full of, I've been thinking about you, you do not soften. You do not go, I've been thinking about you too. Because even if that is true, saying it in that moment sends a signal. It tells them the door is open. It pulls them forward in the conversation without them having to earn anything. Instead, you respond with warmth but with neutrality. Something like, I got your message. I am open to talking if you have something specific you want to address. That is it, nothing more. You are not cold. You are not angry. You are just no longer automatically available. What you are watching for in their response tells you everything. If they respond with clarity and accountability, if they name what happened, if they acknowledge the harm, if they talk about what they have been working on and they can be specific about it, then maybe there is a conversation worth having, not a relationship worth resuming, a conversation worth having. And even then, you proceed with extreme caution and with clear, observable metrics for what change actually looks like over time. Not words, behavior, over time. But if they respond with vagueness, with I just miss you, with deflection, with making it about their feelings without addressing yours, or worst of all, with a subtle guilt trip about how hard this has been for them, you have your answer. That is not someone who has done work. That is someone who got uncomfortable with the distance and came looking for the warmth they had before without any of the accountability. And that is when you say no, not in anger, not in a speech, just no. It can sound like, I appreciate you reaching out. I have done a lot of thinking about what happened between us and where we are. I do not think reconnecting is the right move for me. I am genuinely wishing you well, but this is my answer. And then you stop engaging. You do not explain further. You do not justify. You do not respond to their follow-up messages where they push back or try to negotiate or suddenly become more emotional. You said what you said, you meant it, and you honor it. Because here is something most people do not understand about that moment of rejection. That moment is not the end of something. That moment is the beginning of your actual healing. The first time. The real time. Not the performative healing you do while still secretly hoping they will come back. The real work. The unburdened work. And I want to talk about why this is so hard. Because it is not just about this person. It is about you and what this relationship activated in you. Most people who find themselves in cycles with avoidant partners have their own attachment wounds. Not because there is something wrong with them, but because we are drawn to what is familiar. If you grew up in an environment where love was inconsistent, where warmth came and went, where you had to earn connection or had to manage someone else's emotional temperature, then an avoidant relationship will feel like home to you, even when it is hurting. Because your nervous system recognizes the pattern. The anxious and avoidant pairing is one of the most common and most painful dynamics in adult relationships. The anxious partner pursues. The avoidant withdraws. The anxious partner pursues harder. The avoidant withdraws further, until finally the avoidant leaves or the anxious partner reaches a breaking point, and then the cycle begins all over again when the avoidant comes back. Understanding this does not make you broken. It makes you human, and it gives you the roadmap for what actually needs to heal, because the work is not just about them. The work is about understanding why you stayed as long as you did, why you accepted the crumbs when you deserved the full loaf, why a part of you still lights up when their name appears on your screen even after everything. That is the work, and it is the most important work you will ever do. Let us talk about something that nobody really prepares you for: the guilt. When you reject an avoidant person, especially if they come back with real vulnerability, real tears, real emotion, you are going to feel guilty. You are going to question yourself. You are going to wonder if you are being too harsh, if you are punishing them for something that was not entirely their fault, if maybe you should give them one more chance. That guilt is not a sign that you are making the wrong decision. That guilt is your empathy working against you. Empathy is one of your greatest strengths, but in this context, it has been weaponized, again, not consciously, but effectively, by a dynamic where you were always the one who managed the emotional temperature of the relationship. You were the one who made sure they were okay. You were the one who adjusted yourself to accommodate their discomfort with intimacy, and now they are uncomfortable again. And your system wants to fix it, because that is what you learned to do, but fixing it is not love. Fixing it is a compulsion, and choosing not to fix it, choosing to let them sit with the discomfort of the choice they made when they left, that is not cruelty. That is allowing natural consequences to exist. That is respecting both of you enough to be honest. You do not owe anyone a relationship, not even someone you love, not even someone who loves you in the limited way they are capable of. Let us talk about what the right rejection actually does, not just for you, but even for them. When you respond to an avoidance return with clarity, with warmth, with a firm no, you are doing something that very few people in their life have ever done. You are holding a boundary. Most avoidants have entire relationship histories where the other person eventually caved, eventually came back, eventually lowered the bar again. And every time that happened, the avoidance internal narrative was confirmed. The narrative that says they can withdraw, that they can come back, that connection will always be waiting for them on their terms. When you say no, clearly and kindly, you interrupt that narrative. You show them, maybe for the first time, that their behavior has real consequences, that people will not always wait, that warmth and connection are not things to be taken for granted and then reclaimed at will. That is a significant lesson. Whether they learn from it or not is not your responsibility. But the fact that you delivered it matters. And more than anything, the person you do it for is yourself. Every time you have gone back, something in you has shifted, not in a growth direction, in a compression direction. A little more of your self-worth quietly folded itself up and put itself in a corner. A little more of your trust in your own instincts got overridden. A little more of what you know you deserve got renegotiated downward. When you say no this time, all of that starts to unfold. Slowly. It is not instant, but it starts. Now I want to address something that comes after the no, because the no is actually the easier part. What comes after is the challenge. What comes after is the silence. Again. But this time, it is a silence you chose, and chosen silence feels entirely different from silence that was inflicted on you. Chosen silence is power. Inflicted silence is pain, but your nervous system does not always know the difference at first. And so in the days after you say no, you might feel what seems like grief. You might feel doubt. You might feel a strange kind of loneliness that is sharper than the loneliness you felt when they were gone the first time. Because this time you had the chance to go back and you chose not to. And that choice feels heavy. Let it feel heavy. That heaviness is not a sign you made the wrong choice. That heaviness is the weight of growth. It is the feeling of your old patterns releasing their grip on you. It does not feel good. But it is good. You are going to want to reach back out. You are going to find reasons. You are going to convince yourself that maybe you were too harsh, or that you could have said it differently, or that you owe them another conversation, or that you should check on them. You are not going to do any of those things. You are going to sit with the discomfort and let it pass through you. And it will pass. Not immediately, but it will. You are also going to need support during this time. Real support. From people who know the full picture. From a therapist if you have access to one. From communities of people who understand attachment and healing. You cannot do this in isolation. The avoidant made you feel like isolation was fine, like needing people was too much, like your emotional world was an inconvenience. It is not. It is your greatest asset. Let people in. And while you are doing that, you are going to start noticing something. You are going to start noticing how much space there is in your life, now that your mental and emotional energy is not consumed by this dynamic. How many thoughts you have that are about you, your dreams, your desires, your future, and not about them. How many mornings you wake up and your first thought is not about whether they might reach out today. That space is the beginning of something. Something real and something yours. Let us talk about what you actually want. Not what you have been willing to accept. Not what you have been negotiating for. What you actually genuinely want from a relationship. You want consistency. You want someone who shows up. Not just in the good moments, but in the moments when it is uncomfortable and inconvenient, and when intimacy is hard. You want someone who chooses you, not when they are lonely, but when they have other options and they still choose you. You want emotional availability. A person who can sit with their own feelings without shutting down or shutting you out. You want someone who sees your need for closeness, not as a threat, but as a gift. Those things exist. That kind of love exists. And it is not rare. It is not a fantasy. But you will never find it or recognize it if you keep your energy and your heart tied up in a dynamic that cannot give you those things. The avoidant who comes back is not offering you those things. Even if they think they are. Even if they mean to. Because wanting to offer something and being capable of offering it are two entirely different things, and mistaking one for the other is how you end up back in the same place 12 months from now, having this same conversation with yourself all over again. You know what is more terrifying than saying no? Saying yes again, and watching yourself slowly disappear into the accommodating, endlessly patient, emotionally managing version of yourself that this relationship turned you into. Watching yourself get smaller and smaller to fit into the space they were willing to offer. That is the real terror. And you felt it. You lived it. And somewhere deep in your body, you know exactly what going back would cost you. This is the moment. Not the breakup. Not the silence. This moment right now where they have come back and you are deciding. This is the moment that defines what happens next for you. Not for them. For you, and I want you to decide from your whole self, not from your longing. Not from your fear, not from the part of you that is still, even now, a little bit hoping they will finally get it right. From your whole self. From the self that deserves consistency. From the self that is tired. From the self that did the work. From the self that knows. You already know. You have known for a while. That is why you are here. That is why this is landing the way it is landing. Because somewhere in you, the knowing is already there. I am just giving it permission to be loud. So here is what rejecting them the right way actually looks like. when you put it all together. You take your time before responding. You get grounded. You check in with the evidence of what has actually changed. You engage if you need to, but from a place of clarity, not hope. You say what you need to say with warmth and without cruelty. You set the boundary and you keep it. You do not negotiate. You do not over-explain. You do not check in on them afterward. You take the feelings that come up and you let them move through you instead of acting on them. And you direct your energy inward and forward. That is it. That is the whole thing. Simple, not easy, but simple. And here is what I want to leave you with. The person who is going to love you the way you deserve to be loved, the way you have always deserved to be loved, that person does not require you to abandon your needs to keep them comfortable. That person does not shut down when you need connection. That person does not disappear and then reappear and expect everything to be waiting for them. That person shows up regularly, consistently, imperfectly but consistently. And when they hurt you, they come back with accountability, not just with longing. You are not asking for too much. You never were. You were asking the wrong person. And now you have the chance to stop. Take it.